Jimmy.
Yeah.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. It's a good week. It's a good week.
How are you feeling about all this?
You guys all say it's an act of reverse psychology. I feel fine with the whole thing. This game, it means everything for the Green Bay Packers because you own the Bears. Your playoffs are on the line. This season's success factor as far as how you're going to feel as a Packer fan, and that's how you define success. If this season ends at home with a loss to the team you own, then it's gonna suck all offseason, unquestionably.
Well,
for me,
that's because I work with you. But yeah,
but in general, like that's gonna sting. Which is why I get the point of like it's not a rivalry because the Packers always win, but it is a rivalry in the idea that the second the Bears win something, it automatically triggers Packer fans. Like when the Bears ended the Packers season with Mitch Trubisky at Lambeau Field or at Soldier Field, the Bears won the division. They also officially eliminated the Packers. Now the Packers were trying to make a run similar to they made this year. They fell a little bit short, but it was Eddie Jackson that picked off Aaron Rodgers at Soldier Field. Mitch Trubisky and the Bears sealed the division in Matt Nagy's first year. That was a hostile time. That was not that long ago. All it takes is for one key victory for this thing to be cranked all the way back up. But Chicago hasn't held up the end of their bargain on this.
No, for sure. So I just... Is it like a house money game for you?
Yes.
Is that the way you're viewing it?
So
because if we lose, that's okay. You're already eliminated from the playoffs.
And I said this before, that with this season, the Bears are setting themselves up to be next year's Lions, or the Lions of this year. The Bears are a team that went... Well, the Bears started the season 0-4. They have an opportunity. Well, they've automatically doubled their victories from last year.
Yeah.
They have a roster that has plenty of cap space. It is drastically improved from a team that won 3 games a year before as far as roster building. They tore the whole thing down like the Lions tore down to the studs. They've rebuilt. They have 7 wins. They might end up with the exact same record. They might end up with the same damn season as the Lions where you end your year beating the Packers. But regardless, they also have, through a masterful trade, now that it all has to be executed, but it's one of the best trades in NFL history, where the Bears got DJ Moore, Darnell Wright, Tyreek Stevenson, who was just named Defensive Player of the Week in the NFL, and Darnell Wright is a starting right tackle for the entire season, and DJ Moore is a Pro Bowl, maybe all-pro wide receiver. Plus, they got Carolina's first-round pick, which ended up being number 1 overall, which puts the Bears in a driver's seat to get Caleb Williams or a massive haul. Either one of those, the Bears are positioned to put themselves in a real playoff conversation. Now, next year, these games for the Bears, I'll say this now, these games for Bears fans matter a lot next year. But this year, it doesn't matter much. The Packers aren't going to go on some magical run to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And so get in and win a game or two, whatever, good for you. It doesn't change the Bears' trajectory because the last part of this, the Bears have owned, and I'm not ripping the Packers on this. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers has been great, but the Bears have owned themselves more than anyone else has owned them. There has not been
that we can agree on.
There has not been many seasons. There has not been many seasons where the Bears have like, oh, they're an 8-win team, and if they could just beat the Packers, they'll get into the playoffs. No, it's either they're winning the division or they're crap.
Yeah,
and there is no in between. And so, yes, Aaron Rodgers was an amazing quarterback, and the Packers owned the division during that time. But Chicago and Detroit never really held up their end of the bargain as far as building rosters that would make this rivalry interesting.
No, it was Minnesota and Green Bay for a long time. But I guess I didn't realize that. But now that I think back, you're totally right. It's either like the Bears are really good or they stink.
Yep.
Why is that?
I have no idea. Well, because they fired Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith had a .600 winning percentage when he was fired. And they thought they could do better.
And he was fired when? Like 2012?
They won 10 games as well. I could have been 2012. I know that after they fired him, they brought in Mark Trestman, a disaster. Then they brought in John Fox.
Oh, it might have been earlier than 2012. Yeah, I forgot about
another
John
disaster.
Fox,
and then they brought in Nagy, who had one good year. And Nagy was actually Nagy, I guess, kind of disproved this because they won 13 games, I believe. Then they won 8-8, 8-8, and 8-9.
Chiefs fans hate him, I think.
He's not a good offensive mind. He might be a good... I think he's a QB coach.
Okay.
That really isn't an offensive coordinator and definitely not a head coach.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. All right, so the big Bears question we have to dive into before we talk about this game a little bit more in depth. But what the hell do you do with Justin Fields?
I don't know. I don't know. I'll say it like this. So, one... I am a huge Justin Fields fan. Everything that Packer fans would love about Jordan Love off the field, Justin Fields is that. I mean, there was an off-the-record article written by ESPN, Courtney Cronin, and I forgot who else wrote it with her. And the article was great. And Jason Wilde pointed this out, that the fact that all these players off the record were like, Justin is our guy. Like, they were willing, like, they didn't have to put their name out and say, like, and say nice things about him. They were saying nice things about him regardless of whether it was held to them or not. And Justin Fields, that locker room is his. He busts his ass. He works hard. He's the all the cliches. First one in, last one out. And if you're a football player and you see Justin shaking off a blitzing linebacker and then the D tackle like he did against Atlanta, and then he runs 15 yards to get the first down, and he's getting knocked over all over the field. He's getting knocked around. He's always coming back up. He's always finishing these games unless he's broken something. He's playing hard. So he plays through injury. He plays through being hurt. He carries the off team offensively at times, and he's really got two consistent offensive weapons in DJ Moore and Cole Kmet, and then that's kind of it. And I think the players see that, and they see a guy who's going to quote unquote battle with them, and he's the leader of that team. They're going to play hard to try to keep his job. Now, everything that I've said about Jordan Love, I have to hold true to Justin Fields from my perspective. Of the Bears now have a decision to make with Justin Fields, because maybe they can get him to sign a Jordan Love type deal where it's, hey, let's sign a deal here where it's 2 years, $30 million. So we'll buy out your last deal. The Bears could kick the can down the road. If they traded the first overall pick, they probably get 2-3 first rounders for it. They can make this decision next year. They'll have 2 first rounders the following year that they can move up for and move around and get a quarterback. So they could kick the can down the road. But the other part of it is, if you have to pay this, let's assume Justin's going to say, no, I don't want that deal, because he's played more. He established more in his first 3 years than Jordan Love in his first 3 years, so it's unlikely that he would take that deal. So let's say he doesn't want that deal and the Bears need to make a decision. Well, you have to immediately pay Justin Fields, which is hard for any quarterback. It's the same thing. This is why this Packer game is important for Jordan Love and the Packers. They have likely one season, this season, to have a quarterback on a quote-unquote rookie deal.
Yeah.
This is their year to sneak by and surprise everyone. Immediately they have to pay Jordan Love, and then the clock starts. It reminds me a lot of what Jordan Love was this year, and what they'll have with this group is Russell Wilson, but you have to take Russell Wilson with Seattle, but in Seattle year 3 or 4 with Russell when he got paid.
Right.
And so Russell was good until you had to start paying everyone. Like, you'll have time with Jordan because you don't have to pay these other guys, but within 3 years, you're going to have to start paying all these guys plus Jordan, and then your window gets really tight.
Yeah.
That's the same thing with Chicago to Caleb Williams. If you draft Caleb Williams, you're going to pay him a deal for 4 years, $40 million. If the Bears extend Justin Fields, as we know this with Jordan Love, you're going to be paying that quarterback $40 million a year. So you could have a number one overall pick who's being viewed as the top prospect since Joe Burrow or Trevor Lawrence, and you pay him on a rookie scale deal, and you pay him $10 million a year over 4 years, or do you pay a quarterback who is progressing in Fields $40 million a year, and now all of a sudden you can't hold together a roster? It's the same thing the Packers are going to face immediately with Jordan Love, which still goes back to the idea of, even if he's a fine quarterback, he's got to be damn near elite to make it worthwhile to not add a player during Aaron Rodgers' prime run with the Packers to go win a Super Bowl. Instead, you added a guy that you were not able to take full advantage of his contract with by playing him on his rookie deal.
Yeah, all good points. So I think the Justin Fields thing is just, it's wild, because I think when we had our first annual, we've decided this is annual since it's the new year, Respectful Bears chat, we were kind of in that midst of that losing streak. Like, vibes were not high for the Bears. No. And now Justin Fields has seemingly turned it around, at least to a point.
He's improved every single year he's had in the league. His efficiency numbers have gone up. If you look at his stats, I think Willie talked about it today. I think some people are forgetting with his touchdowns and his passing yards, he missed 4 games. So you have to look more at his efficiency, completion percentage, and QB ratings
rather
are
than
both
the actual
up
numbers.
Because, he missed time, and so his rushing numbers are down. His passing numbers are still higher than the year before, but he missed 4 games this year.
It's a scenario that I don't really remember, right? Like, you might have a guy here, but you also have nothing surefire in the NFL, and especially in the draft.
Right.
But you've got what you just said, right? The best prospect since Lawrence or Burrow.
And
Caleb
both those guys have turned out to be, either elite or very good quarterbacks.
Right, very good at the least,
yes.
right? And you can't knock somebody for being injury-prone like Burrow. So
I'll say this.
What do you want to do?
I don't know, man, because like I said, I love Fields. He's really fun to root for.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. I know Wildy shared a story about how Fields was wearing the Jeff Dickerson hoodie, and he just got to Chicago when Dickerson was there. So Fields is everything you want from a quarterback on and off the field. I mean, as far as
specifically off,
right? But I mean, like he throws.
Good teammate,
right? And the issue I have with Fields, and this is the trickier part, I don't think Getsy's offense, which is the Packers' offense, fits Justin Fields, which is more of like a play action and then see it and rip it. That's not his strength. His strength is I will be a playmaker. He makes more plays per game, probably than most NFL quarterbacks. It's just a matter he makes some boneheaded plays. If you watch him, and we all love the Jordan Love. I mean, Justin Fields is one of the most accurate deep ball throwers in the NFL. He throws an amazing ball. When he's screwing up, it's usually on like throwing to a spot. It's really honestly his screw ups are he's not throwing it when a guy is open. So he's making the play harder. That's the knock on Justin Fields. It's not that he can't put it on target most of the time. He'll airmail through a few throws. It's when a guy is open quickly, he still, because he's such a playmaker, doesn't just get the ball out of his hands. Jordan Love does. If a guy is open and it's let's say a 10-yard throw, Jordan Love's just going to let it rip. Justin will look down the field and maybe try to run and then go back and let it rip. And that's doesn't work in this offense. So the Getsy part of this makes it hard to evaluate Fields. But here's the thing I know for sure is that if they didn't have the first overall pick from Carolina, they would be keeping Justin Fields and building around him.
For sure.
And so that's the tricky part. And Justin Fields, by all accounts, especially since the reports came out, he's only played better since it. He's getting your second-round pick. So he's viewed valuable in this league. He'd be one of the highest quarterbacks traded at this point in their contract for a player ever. Because, I mean, Sam Darnold was traded, but there was picks involved, and he wasn't traded for a second-rounder. And I forgot there was another player. Trey Lance was traded, and obviously not for a second-rounder either.
Right, of course. And I think you and I talked about it last time as well, right? We both view change of scenery can be really positive for some guys.
Yep.
I think Justin Fields could be a prime example of that.
Well,
if he ends up in Atlanta, right? Like that could be a good fit for him.
So if Arthur Smith remains the coach in Atlanta, which is up in the air, he ran an offense with Ryan Tannehill.
I think that's unlikely, but nonetheless,
true. But he ran an offense with Ryan Tannehill. So Justin Fields running an offense. Justin Fields and Ryan Tannehill might be an apt comp. I mean, Fields is more athletic, but they are quarterbacks who can make plays with their legs. They're not elite passers. I mean, they can make elite throws, but they're not elite consistent passers. They are a little bit streaky on it, but they have elite arms. They're just not, maybe elite decision makers. However you want to go it. You can't call Justin Fields an elite passer, but he makes some throws that arguably only 2-3 quarterbacks in the NFL can make.
I've seen some of those throws.
Yes, and he makes plays that really maybe only Lamar Jackson can make. He just doesn't make it consistently. Atlanta could take advantage of those more. Denver might look for a stopgap QB. That would be another one. Washington could be another one.
Yeah, that was a thought, too.
The Bears could get back their pick from Martez Sweat trade.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Which turned out to be a sweet.
Oh, yeah. Sweet and sweat. I see what you did there. I guess you didn't really do anything there. I don't know what I'm talking about.
But that's right.
No, that's okay. But no, Montez Sweat's been terrific. So your confidence for the Bears to win Sunday is low.
Yeah.
Is that because the Packers, you view them as a good team now?
Well, the Bears just don't beat the Packers. That's a big part of it. Like,
really?
What evidence do they just don't? I mean, remember when Mitch Trubisky, they were up at halftime.
I mean, look, I agree with you, Jim.
Yeah.
But I would also make the argument, like, the Raiders shouldn't have beat the Packers.
True.
They did.
Right.
In a national spotlight game like this one will be.
I'm going to watch this game, and I'm going to root for the Bears to win. I'm not putting any investment into it because, one, it doesn't affect their season either or. I guess it's only if Justin Fields goes out and balls out and throws 3 touchdowns and he just looks like the guy he did. Atlanta was a really good game for him.
Yeah.
If he carries it, especially Atlanta's got a top 10 defense, if he carries that to Green Bay and throws 3 touchdowns and 300 yards and looks like the guy, well, then maybe they've helps make a decision because McCaskies really want to beat the Packers. But there's really nothing that comes out of this game that's going to help or hurt the Bears. And so that's why I look at it. It's big for the Packers, but I just don't want to be in this position where I'm going to get extra mad the Bears don't end the Packers season when it's like, okay, the Packers aren't going anywhere, get in the playoffs or don't. I honestly think this last playoff spot shouldn't exist because I guess it's fun, but like these 9-8 football teams are not necessarily good football teams.
No.
They're up and down. The Packers are inconsistent. Because here's the point I am going to make, that if the Bears do beat the Packers, and this is a preview for Rutledge Hamilton, Goody screwed his team over by not believing in it.
Yeah.
If they didn't subtract,
I don't know that he didn't believe in it. I think that's a little far. I think he didn't necessarily have high expectations. Right. He hedged his bets. He didn't have super high expectations for this year.
And to the point of mid-season. I mean, this they might win one more game if they have Douglas.
Yeah. No, you're right.
And then this game, this matters more for positioning in the playoffs than it does get into the playoffs.
Dude, if they still had Rasul Douglas, that would make this Jair Alexander situation even wackier, right? Because you then have Rasul, Valentine, who have both played really well together.
Yep.
What should the Packers do with Jair? Do you have an opinion on this?
Does this even happen if Rasul's there? My understanding, and I'm not in the locker room and it reported, like he seemed like a leader.
He was.
Now I did hear stuff that maybe the Packers didn't like everything he was saying.
That's also true.
But that doesn't matter. Like I don't care what the coaches think. I care what the players think. And if he was keeping that players' locker room in check, and Jair was not acting like an idiot, which was stupid what he did against Carolina.
It was pretty funny though.
Come on,
it was pretty funny.
It was funny from the outside looking in, but really dumb. Really dumb. One of the dumbest things you've ever seen on a football field.
I'm with you.
And then afterwards, just owning how stupid, like not even being aware how stupid it was.
Why would they say anything to me?
Right, and so like that part of it, Jair, I think ideally, I just don't think the Packers will be able to move him. I think ideally they'd love to move him. That contract,
I don't know about that. I think I just think, and you can't guarantee it anymore. So maybe to your point, but if he could get back to the Jair Alexander, or even close to that, 90% of that, you're happy with the investment.
Right, but who in this? And this gets back to the bigger part of it. It's the idea of the Bears didn't take Jalen Carter. And he had a hot start, but now the Bears have Darnell Wright, who has been a starter all year. Could be the best right tackle as far as a rookie in the draft.
Montez Sweat, so he shored that up.
Right, but then also they got because of what they did there, they were able to just kind of build out the route. They got Gervon Dexter, D tackle, who now has more production than Jalen Carter. But the point was, Philadelphia could add Jalen Carter, who had, forget the off the field stuff, on the field motivational concerns like would he show up, would he be a guy that has a motor all year. Philadelphia's roster full of veterans and players who know how to win and know how to keep a locker room in check, he was fine there. Chicago, not that much older than Green Bay. Chicago also an incredibly young roster, and Chicago has more leaders than Green Bay does now, but we didn't know that. I mean, they had Edmonds and Edwards and in free agency, and now they've gotten and Sweat. Now they have more leadership in that locker room. But Green Bay, you have Rashawn Gary is a lead by example guy. He seems to be quiet. Jordan Love is a lead by example guy.
Kenny Clark, same thing.
So who in that room, I think for a guy like Jair, you need someone, I just use the word like Charles Woodson, of someone who locks in that room and holds Jair accountable. And the way the Packers like the team build, they like young players with a select group of veterans, but then you can't have a veteran who needs leadership from within the locker room. There needs to be someone in that locker room to tell Jair, you screwed up. This is not funny. This is not cute. You screwed our team over. We almost lost that damn football game. You're a distraction, and you need to go back to playing football. And you weren't even that good that game.
No,
you need to go back to playing football how we know you can play football, or you need to get out of here. But who on that team, and it's not a knock on any of those players, it's the knock on team building. You have to add players to that team that are willing to step up and say no. Especially if it's not Joe Barry, which Joe Barry, that's not his personality either.
Right. The lack of veteran leadership is something we've pointed at all season, right? And as well as going back to the offensive side of the football, as well as that wide receiver room is played without the veteran presence, it still wouldn't hurt.
If you had Adam Thielen, you probably win one of those games throughout the year.
Right.